let me call the gentleman for the panel. Francesco, we have heard, Dr. Iyad Al-Attar as well. Please welcome on stage with me Dani Elamana. He is the technical director of CAMFIL and member of the board of directors of Eurovent Middle East. Yaqoub Al-Matuq, the national ozone officer from the Environment Protection Authority in Kuwait. And Rangan Srinivasan, the director of marketing and product management at Dream and member of the board of directors at Eurovent Middle East as well. Thank you very much for joining the panel. And let us start briefly with the phase out of the HFCs in the region. Francesco, you have said that Europe is working on a revision of the F-gas regulation. What do you expect, or how much can be taken from the current F-gas regulation in Europe to be applied in the Middle East? And where do you see what's the easiest way to manage that?
Thanks, Markus. As I mentioned before, what has been done at the European level is exactly in line with the Montreal Protocol ban. Well, it's better than what forecasted in the Montreal Protocol. I don't see any reason why the GCC region should not follow the same path. The technology is there. The industry is extremely well prepared. We also have seen that refrigeration technologies, including a variable refrigerant flow, are picking up in terms of innovation. It's sustainable. It's a path that is paying off. It's an approach or a strategy which might result in having the Middle East regions at the forefront of the Kigali Amendment, doing better and better than the other countries. So I really confirm, in my opinion, the GCC regions should aim for following the same path as the current European regulation, F-gas regulation.
Thank you. Yaqoub, you are one of the leading experts in the region on this subject. Where do you see the region at the moment, and could this phase-out be accelerated?
Thank you very much, and I'm pleased to be and honored to be among one of the prestigious place that I have within my friend and like this. So it's appreciated to give me a chance to have a chance. I was listening very carefully to what Francis was saying, that GCC should follow the EU pathways. Two elements as quickly, because the time limit for us to talk, I will gain. In 2016, Kuwait and Bahrain jointly, we done a project under United Nations with UNEP. We copy the GABU meters that EU done, and it shows us within the same frame that EU used, that this region cannot follow. EU said, EPA says, not Kuwait, not Bahrain, not our colleagues. And equipment, technologies, you have to separate it, because general statements is the easiest things to do. You have everything, you can do it, but this is not reality. The second supporting element for us is under the Montreal Protocol itself, 10 countries get exemptions from applying the dates. How that's happened? How that's happened? Because none of the 148 countries could support us with technologies for air conditions to work with high ambient temperature countries. We done our job. We visit Japan, we visit China, we visit USA, we visit Europe. Could you supply us with air conditions that work with a temperature not for 50s? Kuwait reached 55, no, 48. Yes, but there is a conditions. We have to go beyond the ignition and charge limit of flammable refrigerant. So it cannot be applied. Then this is the era for us. But we are not silent. Why? There is sectors that easily can shift. All the GCC here, 100% I'm sure, in the refrigeration sector, everything has been changed to hydrocarbon, 600A. So this is a part moved. By itself, this is market-driven, not governmental driven. We didn't put policies for refrigerant. So the market absorb it and take it. For the air conditions, the push is to put a policy to adopt something that we are not ready for. This is the era of GCC doing that issues. What we do now is economically we are looking to this one, but the supply chain for refrigerant for high ambient countries and GCC is not ready to supply air conditions. What we are thinking of is going beyond the box. We are not concentrating on the equipment. We are concentrating on the complex of technologies, not the equipment. District cooling, whatever. We have to go beyond looking to the equipment and the refrigerant inside that equipment. This is where we are focusing and looking now for the time being. But we are very, very, very careful in our approach because the culture of the people of the GCC within the social pandemic, I told it social pandemic of SNAP and all of these things, that any click in any flammable air condition, boom, nobody will use this technology, whatever you put as well. So we have to be very, very, very careful when we adopt a technology to be totally safe and comfort. This is how we go step by step. We done the task as EU. EU review 2 times the F-gas regulation. Why? Because they find they were mistaken at that time to put these dates. So they updated. So reviewing and updating the issues is the first solution. But for us, we are ready. Whenever the technology is there, we are ready. Car manufacturers now, they have 1, 2, 3, 5F. Do you see any country rejecting that one? No, it's coming. But some model, it's not manufactured. What can I do? I'm not manufacturing cars. I apply with the technology. Put me on the shelf. Technologies, safe, economic, after sales can be maintenance. I will do it tomorrow. What is the problem if I have a technology? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yaqoub. Rangan.
Yeah, so what's...
From a manufacturer's perspective, from a supplier perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that would come in our mind is how does a refrigerant perform in high ambient conditions, right? That's the first thing. GCC is actually extremely unique. We have to rate products up to 52 degrees and up to 55 degrees. So the performance of the refrigerant at high ambient is one of the most important things. The second thing is what are the goals that we are trying to achieve? The first goal is the GWP levels that we are trying to achieve. Are we trying to aim at 150 or are we trying to aim at 750? If that is very clear, then it gives a clear path for the manufacturer to prepare their roadmaps. Moving forward, then, availability of the key components like compressor, other key components that are required. So you have to make sure that you have the entire supply chain as what Engineer Yaqoub mentioned. That's absolutely essential for us to, serve the market because it's not just about a first-time sale, it's about continuity of sale. Beyond that, I mean, after qualifying all this, you start looking at the properties of the refrigerant itself. You look at safety, toxicity, what is the, flammability, so on and so forth. So now we have, you have to look at the system pressure. And right now we are looking at perhaps 2 refrigerants. We have R32 and we have another blend of R32, which is R455 or 454B, which are perhaps potential, say, drop-in refrigerants or refrigerants which could replace R410A. R410A has been extremely successful across the world. Now, R454B is another refrigerant which has very similar properties, a much lower, one-third of, less than one-third, it's about 477 is the GWP versus you have 2088 for R410A. So we're really talking about a good possible replacement refrigerant that is available. So that's where the choice of refrigerants and its associated properties come through. Once we have gone through all these properties, compressor and all the availabilities, then you have to look at the necessary codes, compliance to codes. right? We have to make sure that, I mean, we have international organizations like ASHRAE and HRI. You got the relevant codes in Europe. We can look at all these codes which we have to comply with. Moving forward, then when you go into the cycle, it's about training the operators, installation, serviceability, subsequent maintenance. That's extremely key, and the logistics of handling the refrigerant, storing the refrigerant, and moving forward. And finally, I would say that recyclability, I mean, getting hold of this refrigerant, reclaiming it, reusing it, these are other important things that needs to be considered. So if the question is the industry ready? I would like to say broaden this, say industry is not just manufacturers, it's all of us across, the users, the equipment component suppliers, everybody, and it's a journey that all of us have to take together to, and it's a commitment from everybody to have a very positive impact on global warming. Yeah, thank you.
Yaqoub, is that a clear indicator also that we actually need to invest more in capacity building and the skill sets we need to handle the technology which is there?
It's a cycle, it's a triangle between the manufacturer and supply chain, and between the users, and between the economic of the countries. Because as an engineering-wise, everything can be designed, but the cost of that design will be very. Let me make it very short things of thoughts. This is my own thought. It's not Kuwait thought. This is Engineer Yaqoub thoughts. Okay, so I've just put it on that one. Do you think that the GCC, all of you think that the GCC is the most important region for air conditioning supply? Because everything is air conditioned. I think in some way we will reach that our clothes will be air conditioned in several times. Just imagine that the total Middle East in 2019 by Jiraya, Japanese engineer, says we consumed or imported 11 million units. Total Middle East. Just put it in your mind, not GCC. I will say that this is the GCC. The local market of China is 181 million units. Do you think that the manufacturer will think about that region and put all his effort to develop a unit for that region, or to consume that dimension? We are not priority for any manufacturers. Second thing, that we are the latest to use the technology, and when we start using this technology, then the political issue comes and says we have to change. Now, we change from R22, then say you can go for 14A. Oh, okay, we agreed. All the GCC agreed with the United Nations and Montreal Protocol. 2007, we changed the time to go accelerated. Sudden death. 2009, we have to stop 14A. Then what I will use? Put in the middle. So this is the reality. This is not the newspaper. Now, you have to come to the people who have the information to tell you. That's the reality. Second thing is climate change. Do anybody knows what is the percentage of air conditions to the global warming basket? 2%. You want all our effort at the GCC country to concentrate on 2%, and we leave the 89% of the world? Let them deal with it, then come to the air conditioning. This is the sectors. The second thing, in Europe, when we negotiate in the negotiation system, before in 2010, like that, in the beginning, the issue was very easy. They are thinking that air condition is a luxurious way of our living. But you are here. Could you face working in the outdoor at 12 o'clock? Could you do it? Could you drive a car in GCC without air conditions? So what do you want us to do? This is a necessity for us, and this is a life issue for us. It's not something as a luxurious to do it. So the element of thinking and giving the people, my fellow countries in GCC, they are end user. They don't understand what we are saying about GWB or climate change. He wants something to make him comfort. Then we will come to the designer. Why you don't design equipment? He say, I want the refrigerant. We go to the guys who manufacture refrigerant. He say, I want the compressor. And this is chicken or eggs. and the manufacturer stops. So what we said that, let's cooperate together, and let's keep it very open-wide, that this is the reality, and we have to deal with this reality, and this is what we are doing. We held the meetings, we have, if you think there is any industry in this room didn't communicate with us and ask us, and we support whatever initiative you have, we will do it. Whatever initiative you have, we will do it. Mr. Tariq said about filtrations, right? I'm the most supporting guys for that filtrations. Why? Because it will save energy. Because if the filter is clean, the unit will work properly. Ask yourself, do any public awareness been in GCC for the last 10 years, public awareness for end user, for filter? Just ask yourself. End user never have a public awareness about filtration. And you come and say, why you don't clean your filter? I don't know what type of filter.
I will come back to that argument very soon. Sorry? Of course.
Just what you are expressing, lack of availability of components, skills, and so on, it is exactly what happened in 2014 at the European level. Exactly the same kind of concerns. We don't find compressors, we don't find components, it's difficult to design a new system. Well, I think that this is one of the reasons why we have Eurovent Middle East, supporting in this kind of exercise. Eurovent Middle East is here also for this point. We can make use of what happened in Europe, we can make use of the skills of local people, put everything together and going ahead. I think the scenario is feasible. It's a matter of working together jointly. We can do it.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I think Eurovent Middle East is one of these important steps to make the Middle East a partner on a more global table. We need to make the voices and the opinions and the conditions in the Middle East heard and understood, and that works only through internal channels in the technical committees that we send the right people there and give feedback of what's not being justified to be copied or applied to this region. As you have mentioned, Dr. Iyad and the presentation on air filtration. Let's switch here to this question of IAQ. You said yourself, when was the last time we spoke to, or whoever told the public about the issue of IAQ? How can we make the public aware? How can we increase these mindsets, the awareness? Why are we talking about this? We as an industry, we have IAQ already on the forefront for the past 10 years. Why does it need a pandemic that we are talking about it now?
Thank you, and I agree with Engineer Yaqoub. I think he's put his finger on so many important issues. Let's go back to basic principles. Every time air quality and air filtration initiatives or a proposal for enhancing indoor quality has been put on the table, most of us, and when I say most of us, I'm not only referring to governments, but also private sectors, facility management, leave the conversation rather than lead the conversation. So the consequences we have to face when the pandemic came about is we rendered our cities, smart cities, unfit to occupy. Isn't that sad? So why were they unfit to occupy? Have we done our filtration homework? You know, I believe the pictures I've shown in my presentation basically sends a message. Is this what you're asking us to have, Mr. Facility Manager? Why is it that we cannot get enough budget allocated for A, filtration, appropriate filtration selection from the start? When you sit down with the AHU manufacturer, with your client, with the consultant, guess what? I am at the area where NOx, SOx emission, PM1, PM2.5 are high. This is what I'm going to do. This is what you will be held responsible, because guess what? I am installing and deploying particle counters. And whether or not your filter will live up to the expectation, my particle counter is going to know about this. So this is a way to basically take things forward. This is a sustainable way to do it. If we don't measure it, we'll never be able to have the conversation we want to have with air filter manufacturers, with AHU manufacturers. If I have a sandstorm, are you accommodating this? Engineer talked about thermal comfort. Of course. If you give me two choices, I'd rather have thermal comfort. But frankly, I'm not going to inhale silica dust with H2S and NOx and SOx emission. Here are the specifics, since Markus had asked about specifics. First, challenge and change. Challenge the status quo. Whatever we've been doing in the past at least 20 to 50 years, we reject the notion. No more cleaning disposable filters. Quantify, measure, report incidents, and ensure that we have an air quality that we can basically deliver it to the next level. I know every time we talk about retrofitting, filter upgrades, facility management, people come up and say, pre-COVID, well, it's not a priority, I don't have it in the budget, talk to me next year. Past COVID, I'm sorry, I'm out of money because of the pandemic and the economics. So listen, we can dance about the change, or we can get right to it. The choice is ours.
Thank you. Dani, is the HVAC industry invisible to the general public? Because we all can complain when it's too hot, too cold, too humid, too dry, but we do not know, we do not see it, what's going on in the background. How can we make it more visible? What can be done?
I've been in the industry since last 10 years. Every time I go back, meeting people, maybe they listen to you, but then you go back after the meeting, it's the same old story. As Dr. Iyad was saying, the general awareness of maintaining filters, at least I can talk from a filtration perspective, is unfortunately not there. There are a lot of unconventional practices being carried out in this part of the world, GCC in particular, I've seen. Washing the filters, drying it. It's all a concern for indoor air quality. We can have good specs. We can put the right specification in the project, but then to maintain that and to implement that is what I see as a challenge. So, we need to come together. We need to have everything in a nutshell to provide the best indoor air quality or an sustainable solution. That's what I.
Thank you. Yaqoub, please.
Just to Mr. Iyad says about the filtrations, I will give one example how you can put it. Do you think that any of the end user, if you put the best filter in his unit when you are selling to him, he will reject it? Ask all the supplier here what type of filter they put in the machine. Do in the recommendation and the quotation of that installation for my villa contain the filters? No. It's contain BTU and the power and the kilowatt consumption. Nothing else. No high pressure, no low pressure. It's not mentioned. But if you put it in the unit and increase the price, I'm forced to take it. But they don't want to do it. I'm saying clearly, they don't want to do it. I will give another very surprising issue. Do you know that all the ducted system in the GCC, they have an opening, Iyad knows, it's called fresh air. Do you know that they close it? They close it by aluminum, they close it. Do you know why? Because their machine cannot work with high ambient temperature, so they close it. So every 2 hours, we have to have 20% of fresh air entering to this unit. That will kill the compressor of that unit very soon. So this is coming from the industry. It's not coming from the end users. Now, if you buy a car and they say it's, octane 9895, you will buy it? Or you say, no, sorry, I will not buy the Mercedes because you put something. If you put it 95, I will buy it. If you put fuel of 98, I will buy it. I like that brand, I will. So the element is you are waiting the end user to force the industry to put this one. That cannot happen.
We basically need to have a public awareness campaign.
The industry can change it. The industry can change it. Now, my iPhone is there. When they put three camera, did I buy it or I leave it? Now, if they take one camera and keep 2 camera, I will buy it. The industry put this filter and charge it on me. I will buy it. Because you are giving me health, I will buy it. But you are waiting for me, Engineer Yaqoub, what type of filter you need? I don't know. Do my air conditioner have filter? Yes. Where? I don't know.
Rangan, Are we sexy enough to be comparable to a mobile phone with 3 camera lenses?
I think we have to take the best from every industry, right? It's basically, it could be from a mobile phone or it can be from the service industry. So the key thing is what are the best practices, because business may differ, but the processes and things that we take is what is most important. But I tend to agree that, you know, there are market dynamics from the supplier's point of view. I think the first thing is government mandates, right? If it is mandated in Europe, for example, or in the US, then everything and everybody falls in line. So that's, I think, a very key influencer in the business, or you have no choice for continuity of business. The second thing is from the suppliers themselves. Okay, there is always this thing for the supplier to offer more energy efficient products, differentiate themselves from others, offer more value to the customers, and so on and so forth. So that's again a very important part of the product portfolio that every supplier should continuously be, you know, offering. There's a very important part of commercial viability, at least when it comes to refrigerant and, you know, introduction of refrigerant. And I've seen this happening over a period of time. If you connect the dots, we had CFCs and then, you know, HCFCs and HFCs. It has gone. But the key thing that really matters is economies of producing that particular product from a manufacturer's point of view. So if the market is, you know, if, for example, if the whole world is going towards R454B, America is going towards it, China is going towards it, GCC may be a very small, you know, portion in this overall scale. So the entire transition is going to happen much earlier than before. Okay, there may be a kind of a crossover between the two, and then eventually you will find that as we come closer to the 2028, you know, when the baseline is actually met, you'll find that 26 onwards, things are going to go towards, you know, comparable refrigerants. It will happen at that point of time for sure, because the life of an air conditioning equipment is anywhere between 10 to 15 years. So if you buy now, you have the luxury of another 15 years. Nobody is going to buy, you know, which is more expensive, or the refrigerant cost may be more, and so on and so forth. So maintenance issue starts coming up. But as we are moving closer to the life cycle of the and Kigali Agreement enforcement dates, automatically the shift is going to happen, because globally suppliers are going to start having more of, you know, the, say, eco-friendly, comparably lower GWP refrigerant. So transition is going to happen. But the key issue is, can we expedite it? Can we do it faster than what are the set dates? That is the question mark, and that is something, if we want to do, all of us have to work together, create an ecosystem for all of us for this transition. It's not one single thing. You know, everybody works on it together, and we cross the path.
Yeah, I believe accelerating has a lot to do with raising the awareness and qualifying people, right? Iyad, qualifying, is that a wish you would have towards governments when we think about how can we rethink the regulatory environment, that we mandate and request certain qualifications before we let people handle things, which is the same thing for, the same thing if it would be refrigerants, but also the same thing on handling air filters, both critical systems.
You know, it's, I always go back to the saying, we've been doing the same thing over and over again, and we're expecting different results. When I say providing appropriate tools and conditions to maintenance technicians, I don't mean safety shoes and a $2 screwdriver. You know, these people should be very well paid. They should be part of the success equation. Second point I want to talk about is, I think what both of these gentlemen have talked about, which is creating value. You know, when you buy a car, you ask about everything else, but you never ask about the tire. How good is my tire is? Same thing with filtration. You worry about the heat load and you worry about the other specification. Then the air manufacturing, air conditioning unit will say, well, he didn't ask about filters, so I can do or choose whatever I want. This got to change. When you come and say, listen, I've got an aerosol monitoring report. My area suffers from PM 2.5, PM1. I got NOx and SOx emission, possibly H2S. you gotta have to take this in consideration. My next point is not only that I would like governments globally to facilitate change, invest and grow and retrofits, and even possibly scrap the existing system, but also install a new system, but also universities. I call upon universities to provide research and development. I know you guys in Canfil are doing, and I know other manufacturers here are doing very good research and spending so much money on research and development. What's the point if the specification of a filter is a dimension and a price? So Mr. Tariq said we've got everything, we do, but we got to speak the same language, being on the same page. There is a gap, and I really believe the gap, to close the gap, is being here today. This memorandum of understanding we've signed today, revamp the entire, turn the table on its head, rethink, reimagine air quality and HVAC systems and our built environment. I think we've had so much of the same thing over the past 50 years. We're getting too tired. I personally do not want to go back to lockdown. I'm going to do everything, and I'm happy to avail myself to do everything with the Eurovent to make a difference.
Dani, what is your wish in regards to government? I mean, do we can say the industry, I think, invests a lot in research and development. We try to tell the story. I think we need help.
Let me tell you an interesting fact. Air pollution kills around 7 million people every year, or more than that. Last 2 years from COVID, 2 years, around 6 million people, correct me if I'm wrong. In 2 years' time, 6 million people died from COVID. And air pollution kills 7 million people every year. That's a fact. And still we are a bit reluctant to accept the need of good indoor air, maybe because, from our perspective, we do try to pitch the need of good air filtration, indoor air quality. But then, as I said, the implementation is not there. Unfortunately, the will to accept change is less, I would say. People are afraid to try something new. And, during COVID, I've been getting inquiries to have HEPA filters installed for fan coil units. That's something weird. They just suddenly, come up to have the best indoor air quality, but without properly doing the right design. Yes, from my point of view, I would like to have everyone understanding the fact that indoor air quality is the paramount thing. And we need to have government bodies, authorities bringing up new regulations. We need to have people educated, good maintenance team. Then only, we'll be achieving our goal. Otherwise, success is far away. And trust me, whatever we are doing right now will have an implication 10, 15 years from now. That's the next generation. So as Dr. Iyad said, talking to universities, generating a new level of people with qualified knowledge on filtration would be the target, should be the target. Yeah.
Let me just endorse Dani's point. 92% of us live in areas where it's beyond the acceptable limit in terms of particulate matters. 98%. What are we waiting for? To reach 100%? How is that going to implement, that finite thing called the atmosphere? This is where our air conditioning system introduces air to the built environment. So I think we have to incorporate air pollution, the records. COVID now is another challenge. Sandstorms, humidity, many challenges. And I think we have what it takes to get it done.
Francesco, a closing statement?
Well, it's something that a friend of mine active in the air filtration for hospitals told me a couple of years ago. Francesco, ABC, these hospitals, they have a properly filtered air. I'm very happy with that. But I would prefer not going to the hospital if the indoor air in my place is not properly filtered. That's it.
Thank you very much. We are closing the panel here. It's time for our lunch. I would like to thank you for participating in this panel, Yaqoub, was very informative. Thank you very much. We will hand this gift also to the previous panel, which I had to close too quickly. Dani, thank you. Iyad, great job done today. Thank you very much. Let's clap for the panel.
Thank you.